Congressman from Minnesota's first district for 12 years, and now sharing his thoughts with us on the Al Travis Show. It's Congressman Gil Gutknecht.
We're lucky to have me understand what goes on in Washington. He comes on the program to chat with us about it. He is Gil Gutknecht. Congressman, thanks for being here, my friend.
It's my pleasure.
We have so much to discuss, which may be the theme song for having Trump as your president. But the talk of the town today and in the last week is the tariffs. So he comes out, and I watched the whole thing. It was a half-hour speech that lasted 45, almost 50 minutes, but that's Donald, putting up the poster on how we're going to do this and what other countries are charging us for tariffs and why we're going after them. And, of course, the next day, the markets start taking a dive, and they have for 3-4 days in a row. Looks like they're going to be up today. We'll see. Tariffs, you for them or you get them?
Well, technically, I'm against tariffs. I mean, The truth of the matter is a tariff is a tax, okay?
Yeah.
And what you're really trying to do is collect taxes from people who are importing products into your country. But just to put it into historical perspective, the federal government was run almost exclusively. I mean, all of the funding to fund the federal government came from tariffs for over 100 years. In fact, that was, the biggest part of Ellis Island was to collect tariffs from products coming into the United States and into the New York harbor. So tariffs are not new. And as a matter of fact, if you go back to even ancient Europe and you see all these castles along the River Rhine and the Danube and so forth, I mean, they were set up to collect tariffs as products moved up and down the rivers. So the idea of tariffs is not new, okay? But what has happened over the last 40 or 50 years is the United States has allowed other countries to charge tariffs. And we saw on the chart that the President Trump put up, virtually every country has tariffs that are more than double what ours are. And so what he's saying is we have to reset. We have to have some kind of equilibrium. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we can't have a situation where we charge 10% tariffs on one country's products and they charge us 62%. Those things have got to be brought more into line. And, the interesting thing, and I would bet there are people listening to this program who are farm people. Oh, yeah. Or if they aren't on the farm today, they were raised on a farm, they understand farms. And frankly, a lot of them have raised cattle. And my grandfather had a pretty good herd of Hereford cows. Mm-hmm. And in the spring, they would have calves. And then later on, midsummer or so, they would wean those calves. Those calves would bawl. I mean, they would beller, and the cows would beller back at them. When you wean calves, there is a consequence. They don't like it. All right.
Yes.
And what you have on Wall Street today is essentially a bunch of addicts. Yep. They have become addicted to cheap labor and a tariff situation which punishes American workers. Okay. Yep. They're addicted to that model. That's their business model. All of a sudden, what Trump is doing both with immigration and now with tariffs, he's saying, wait a second, that model does not work for American workers. And we're going to change that model. And like a bunch of calves in midsummer, they're bawling like babies. And like all of a sudden, their world has been turned upside down.
That's a great analogy.
Now, markets are more powerful than armies. Okay. Ultimately, markets will adjust to this new tariff structure. And more importantly, our trading partners now understand that there's a new sheriff in Washington, D.C., and he is going to change the order in terms of how tariffs are apportioned. And we're going to get some kind of equality, maybe not perfect, but there's going to have to be a rebalancing of the world trade situation. And part of the reason is we cannot allow China, for example, to take all of our heavy manufacturing, our steel industry, our aluminum industry, our pharmaceutical industry. So much of that has been allowed to go overseas so that they could get cheaper labor, cheaper tax consequences and so forth. And now all of a sudden we have hollowed out so much of this industry, and Trump is saying we cannot continue on this path. And I think most Americans agree with that. Now, Wall Street is always the last one to really get the message because they're just a bunch of lemmings. Let me also say this about Wall Street. I mean, one of the stocks that I own, in full disclosure, is a little company called Fastenal that's based in Winona, Minnesota. And I checked it yesterday. Okay. And Fastenal has been a great little company. I mean, Bob Kierlin recently died. He was a business genius. He took a real simple idea and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to have met him and said, "Man, I love the way he runs his company." And so I bought a little bit of a few of their shares. Okay, and I've had them for a long time, and they've done incredibly well. But at the beginning of the year, I looked at the price. In January 1, yesterday about 2 o'clock, the price was almost identical. So it had gone up and had come back down, but it was still selling. Today, it's still selling for 35 times earnings. Now, I bought my first stock when I was 16 years old. I'm not the Wizard of Wall Street, but I do understand stocks. I do understand earnings and so forth. And the truth of the matter is there is no reason that a company like Fastenal should be trading at 35 times earnings. All right. So I'm saying that the whole market is probably set for a correction. And I'm not even sure we've seen the end of it. But tariffs were only the trigger. And these wizards of Wall Street who are addicted to cheap labor, cheap tariffs as it relates to imports, that are addicted to large federal deficits, all of those things, all that part of their business model is now changing, and they don't know how to deal with that.
Well, let's throw a couple of things out. First off, there are 170 countries that had tariffs on the U.S. I don't know if average Joe even thought about it, and now you look at it and said, okay, I guess countries do that sort of thing. Can you tell me why the left is so outraged? Because they even have videos of Nancy Pelosi in 96 talking about the trade tariff difference between China in 96. What is their argument to say, well, America should not be able to use tariffs? That's a horrible, terrible thing, when 170 out of the 193 countries in the world are tariffing us already. Why is, you know what I'm saying? Us getting in the game late seems strange to be the argument.
Well, I'll use a nice word. It's disingenuous.
Okay.
That's the nicest way you can say it. They don't believe that. And frankly, I think their disingenuousness comes through. I mean, I think people see through it. When you see the video of Nancy Pelosi laying out the case that back in 96, it was time to level the playing field. You know, the sad thing is, I was one who began to understand that this situation couldn't stand much longer. I was one of the first Republicans to say, wait a second, we're allowing other countries to hollow out our basic industries. And at the end of the day, we can't just sell insurance and be financial planners to each other. I mean, America has to build things. And the interesting thing is, Americans are incredibly ingenious. We know how to build things, but we can't build things if the playing field is so unlevel between us and other countries. Yeah. So once you level that, and let me come back to something that Trump knows. He knows Trump may not be an absolute genius, but he knows several things. And frankly, the Democrats, I think, know this too. And that is that, number one, once you begin to level these playing fields, the American economy is going to take off like a rocket. Okay. Second, he has at least $3 trillion up his sleeve in foreign investment that's ready to come into the United States, whether it's auto plants, pharmaceutical plants, chip plants, computer plants, whatever. People want to invest in the United States of America. And let me say this, every politician, every Wall Street genius that has bet against the American economy has bet wrong. And I think they're betting wrong today. And I think Wall Street, sooner or later, Wall Street will come around. What you're seeing is the Europeans, the Canadians, the Mexicans, all of these countries recognize that Trump is right and that he is going to win, and he's got the cards. And they can bluff all they want, but he's sitting there with an inside straight, and there is no way that Canada can bet against the United States. They need us much more than we need them. And that's true universally around the world. Yeah. So Trump is going to win on this trade thing, but it's not about Trump. The American people and American workers are going to win.
And on a side note, as of this morning, up to 70 of those 170 countries I talked about, 70, including the EU, have already contacted Trump's people to ask to talk about renegotiating the tariff situation. So he got their attention. They're lining up to do this. Now, I think China will be the very last one, but that's an offshoot. But currently, they're lining up to say we're done. We have to do this because, like you said, they understand what's going on. The other thing is interesting to me on a side note, a ton of Made in America commercials are on TV currently. The other night I was watching the NCAA. I was watching going up back and forth on TV. These jeans are made in America. These Fords you can get for Ford pricing. This silverware is all made in America. This is going to spawn something. You will not feel a tariff if you buy American. I think just that alone is going to absolutely spread, because everybody's worried about everything. It's a tax on everything. It's not. If it's not made, if it's not made in America, that's where the tax is. If you go out of your way to find made in America, you'll never feel the difference. I think that's
I thought it was great over the weekend. Oh, we need to take a break.
We do. Can I go to break and will you remember that? Write it down. We'll talk coming up what Gil found interesting over the weekend. We do that right after this.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul, but who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to americanexperiment.org to learn more.
Dust from gravel roads and driveways does more than make your car dirty inside and out. It gets down into your lungs, and it's bad for your health. Now there's an environmentally friendly solution for your dust problems. It's called Dust Block. Dust Block can control all your summer dust problems with just one application. Protect your vehicle and your lungs. Learn more at dustblock.com.
A as in alligator. L also in alligator. But it's not alligator. It's the Al Travis Show.
Lucky to have him, Congressman Gil Gutknecht, on with us today, and he had something he thought about this weekend. What was that, sir?
Well, it was one of the news shows, and they were the little interviewer was interviewing the Secretary of the Treasury, and she, in her rather snotty way, said, "What do you say to the average American who's out shopping for cars, and all of a sudden they see that the price has gone up 25%?" And he had a two-word answer: "Buy American." And that is going to become the theme. I think, like you say, the advertising people have already picked up on it. And if I can come back to my little company, not so little, multi-billion-dollar company, Fastenal, based in Winona, Minnesota. I mean, part of the reason they have done as well as they have done relative to their competitors, I didn't even realize this. I did my own research yesterday. I was trying to figure out what all was really going on. But Fastenal now employs 70,000 people in their manufacturing department. And most of those jobs are in either Winona, Minnesota, Indianapolis, and there's one other plant. And they have plants also in the United Kingdom and the Czech Republic. They have one plant in China. Yes, they buy Chinese products, but they are far less dependent on China than most of their competitors. And so at the end of the day, Fastenal is going to do extremely well in this new environment.
All right. When it comes down to, and it always does, do you believe this tariff situation, they did it very early on for a reason, this may take 3-4 months, this may take 6 months. Is this going to have any lingering for the elections coming up in 18 months from now? If we don't see the tariff shift, this could hurt, I think, the Republicans. Your thoughts on what this does 18 months from now with the elections, the midterms?
Well, I think you answered your question earlier, and that is that these countries are already lining up to renegotiate. I mean, I think that you will see Canada will probably be among the last because they've got an election in 5 weeks. And I don't think either side wants to blink and pretend that they're going to blink towards Donald Trump. So I don't think Canada is going to move. But I think the European Union already signaled that they're willing to go to zero tariffs both ways on industrial goods. That's good. And I think what Trump will say, well, that's an interesting offer. I'll see that offer and I'll raise you. Because what we really want is better access to their agricultural markets. I mean, they have kept American beef, they've kept American chicken, they've kept American products out of Europe with stupid regulations. And so we may not get everything we want, but you will see a much more level playing field. And I think partly because of all of the layoffs that are going on at the federal level, and they're going to be a lot. I mean, I would not be surprised if the federal workforce dropped by, several 100,000. Okay. Yeah. And that's going to be disruptive to the economy. I also think I agree with President Trump. Interest rates are probably a little too high for where the economy is today. So I do think that the economy is going to be relatively soft for the next 3 to 6 months. But then I think the American economy is going to come roaring back. And so I don't worry about what the economy is going to be like in 18 months for the next, congressional elections. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, it's the first week in April. Let's see what happens 6 to 8 months from now, and we'll bring it up and say, see, you told me so. I'd be willing. One last thing quickly. It just happened yesterday. The Supreme Court came out and basically said that Trump has the right to deport cartels and that sort of thing. The liberal judges that are going out, the federal judges saying, hey, you got to stop. I'm a federal judge from nowhere that I've ever heard of. The Supreme Court said you can't do that anymore. Do you think that'll stop this random judge trying to stop the president thing from going on? This is kind of big for Trump.
Well, whether it's a stop or not, it's a start. Okay. I think that the truth of the matter is the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, who basically runs the federal court system, could send out a memo clarifying what the powers of each district judge are. I mean, and if he doesn't, I suspect the Congress will. So the idea that the federal judges can do whatever they damn well please, whether it's constitutional, whether it has anything to do with the law, more importantly, whether it has anything to do with precedent. Those days, I think, are coming to an end. And in fact, in some respect, the episodes we've been through over the last several years with federal judges and even state judges really way overstating their powers. I think all of those episodes are going to bring us to a new place where we will once again have a tripartite government, and that judges do not rule supreme. Judges cannot tell the president what to do as it relates to policy. The judges, they have a specific role, but they can't overstep their bounds.
And you believe the Supreme Court is willing to do that? I mean, was it Barrett
Well,
went
as
the
I
other
say,
way,
if they're-
5-4?
If they're not, I think the Congress will.
Okay, fair enough.
Even with slender majorities, I think most members of Congress, and frankly, I think all Republicans have seen the abuses of the court system, and they're going to do something to stop it. Grassley's going to do it in the Senate, and it's going to be done in the House as well.
All right. My friend, we're out of time. You know, I love having you on the program, and thank you for being here. 6 months from now, folks, we'll look back and say, was he right or wrong? I'm hoping you're right. I think you're going to be right. I appreciate you being here, my friend.
Hey, when I'm right, no one remembers. When I'm wrong, everyone.
Isn't that the way it works? That's how it is in my house. Got to go to break. We'll be back after this.
Yep.